Go back to Australia in March 1997 and quite a murky, drizzly, cool day at Mount Victoria, which is about 3,500 feet above sea level, up in the Blue Mountains, a couple of hours out of Sydney. And there's a change of locomotives taking place. A bunch of 486 class electrics have just brought up a empty coal train, and those locos are heading down to Lithgow for servicing, and 4 other 86 are sitting in the yard about to back onto the train, and they'll take the train down the hill to a place called Newbridge Junction, where the train will get loaded with coal and head back east towards Sydney. So we'll start off this part of the tape with just a few random shots that I took on our travels. First of all at Mount Victoria in the Blue Mountains, and I'll tell you a bit about the rest as we go through them. The Sydney-bound EMU shortly arrives, and after a moment's stopping, let 1, 2 people off and on, it carries on its way eastward. And our empty coal service soon heads off westward. Now that empty coal train wasn't very long gone, and I'd hardly panned around and turned the camera off, and around the corner came another westbound empty coal train. And while it was going past, there was the eastbound container train went through, I believe heading from a place called Blaney, which is, we actually went through the following day, and running into Botany Bay, into the main container terminal. They run trains from Blaney into Sydney twice a day with containers. It's a Central West container depot. Mount Victoria Station is a marvellously restored building. The whole precinct's wonderful. There's fishers hanging in their baskets from the rafters and the platform areas, and both sides of the station have been restored. There's also a museum in the main stations area, which is only open unfortunately on the weekends. Now we've just seen a service now coming from the east, which is a terminating service, and shortly after we'll see the through Lithgow service pull up, and before it carries on its journey west into Lithgow, which is the end of the City Rail services in this direction. Of course, Country Link run services further west beyond Lithgow. Of course, the other thing that happened by this stage of the day was that the cloud lifted and the rain had cleared away, which, on all that low cloud and fog earlier on, prevented us seeing very little of the Three Sisters in the Jamison Valley, other famous tourist areas further down at Katoomba. We could actually only see about 10 to 15 yards in front of you and made very hard driving conditions. And of course, by the time the last of the train services had disappeared, the rain, of course, cleared away. However, that's the way it goes. Yeah, this little segment's farewell from Mount Victoria. Generally, Australia does a very good line in restoring their stations, unlike New Zealand, which has a tendency to knock them over. This is Bathurst Station. This can be seen from date 1876, totally modernised, very well maintained interior, automatic doors, very comfortable, very tidy toilets, which I made use of, all those sorts of things. Takeaway, refreshment rooms, I should say. There's also quite a large yard there, also big railway workshops. And you don't visit Bathurst without a trip up to Mount Panorama and the motor racing circuit, which is a normal street away from the Bathurst 1000 time of the year in October. So if you come up here in October, don't expect to be able to drive around this road. It's quite a nice view from up here too. It wasn't a very good day, quite a strong wind blowing. It's amazing what you find around the countryside in New South Wales. In this case, a ballast train heading downhill, approaching a station called Newbridge, which is about midway between Bathurst and Blaney. Incidentally, these 4 old Elcos on the head of this, 448 class Elcos. It's amazing what else you can find parked beside the road too. This is just on the outskirts of Cowra, coming to Cowra on the road down from Blaney. Museum we didn't actually go in, just really didn't have time. We were only passing through and had no idea it was here. I'm told it's an old South Australian locomotive. It's parked up outside. Yeah, about 15 k south of Cowra we came across this. A grain train with a 422 and 348s in tow. And through the kind invitation of the driver, we offered, went for a little trip down the track for a few k's in the cab. And then an unrebuilt GM from about 1969. The station I got aboard was Kurawatha, and went for a ride for about 10 k's at the place called Kurawatha. I think this train's numbered 3336, 3335, I think numbers are, but it's a grain service. It originates at Cootamundra, which is where the crew come from on the main line, and they actually travel all the way up to Cowra with the set locos, and they've been out to a branch line which runs out from Kurawatha to the Greenthorpe's line it's called, and they've been up there with the 48s only to pick up some of those grain cars out on the back, and they had to pick up another 20 more further down the track, a place called Young, and eventually they rejoin the main line at Harden where they leave their train. Whether they get back there before their time's up, of course, was a different matter. They usually come off the road at 1700, at the stage it was about 1400. Anyhow, they dropped me off, and the soon train soon accelerated off in the cloud of Alco smoke into the distance.
Up here somewhere.
Next morning we found ourselves at Wagga Wagga, commonly known as Wagga. A couple of brand new NR class locos. It's either a northbound super freighter, not too sure what train number it is. It's a Melbourne somewhere train, maybe either Melbourne Sydney or Melbourne Brisbane. Once again, a very well restored old station building. And yeah, the two NRs are on their way, so we'll leave it to it. And like most of the intercity freights, a reasonable sized train, this one. Not too sure what happened. One of the train crew had been for a walk around the train, so whether they spotted a dragging equipment or something, I'm not too sure, but anyhow, quite a reasonable sized train, as you can see. Accelerated off, headed across the floodplain bridges at just north of Wagga. There's about 2 or 3 kilometres of track which are on bridge trestles that cross the river just north of Wagga Station. a bit hard to get a shot of it actually, because there's not much hill around it. It was a bit hard to get any real good shots of it. However, you also notice the bell of the loco. I'm not too sure whether that was my benefit or not. Unfortunately, I missed a bit of the restart because the camera played up. However, I've rescued what I can of this particular shot. Anyhow, after this, we of course spent the next day or so travelling down to Melbourne. Unfortunately, our final day travelling to Melbourne, the Saturday was the Saturday before the Grand Prix, and the public transport union decided to pull the plug and go on strike for the weekend, so there wasn't many trains around to video as we made our way into Melbourne. However, once in Melbourne, I did catch up with a few freight trains, and they came up in the next sequence. Now, these few scenes are the station at Benalla, and just out of curiosity or anything else, the turntable here, there's actually 14 sets of tracks around this turntable, and just by pure coincidence, we actually ended up speaking to a guy who retired as a driving instructor here for locomotive drivers, and he was telling me in its heyday this locomotive depot at Benalla had 31 locomotives spaced there, which is quite remarkable when you look at it now and find there's nothing based there at all. Of course, this is all V-line broad gauge track here at Benalla. And another little interesting place here too is a place called Violet Town. Its main claim to fame was back in the early 60s when the Southern Aurora had a big accident here. Ran into a freight train. A few people were killed. There's a stone pier beside the track just south of the town which marks the spot and commemorates the event which happened in the early 1960s. These things you learn on your travels, it's quite remarkable. Now for some train spotting at Middle Footscray on a Friday evening with a local train spotters club. This one here is a push me pull you. A couple of B classes on either end. I'm told they call them 4 man's XPT. It's really interesting here because there's a passenger train about every 10 minutes. Of course, there's electric trains in between. And on the other side, you've got 2 freight lines which serve Melbourne, both the broad gauge and the standard gauge. On this particular night, things were a bit haywire on the freight side of it, so we had a whole parade of passenger trains for the first hour and a half before any freight train showed up. Now even the passenger services are a bit out of kilter this night because that train that's just going past now, it was only about a block section behind the previous pushing pull you service, and they're normally about 15 minutes apart, so things were quite chaotic. Apparently there was a faulty wagon to come off a freight train in the freight yards, plus there was a wrong wagon on the wrong train, and on a scanner too there was problems down at Spencer Street with, I think there may have been 1 or 2 loco failures and late return services, so things weren't going particularly well. However, I was quite enjoying it. I've never experienced anything like this before, so I just sat here and filmed it all. As you can see from that shot there too, you can see how close together these signals are. They're only about 600 metres apart. So each service is not too far behind the other. Now on the right hand side of that shot you can see the 2 tracks, the freight tracks, the dual gauge, broad gauge and standard gauge. And as the evening wore on, the stage of proceedings is after 5 o'clock, it's about 5:15 at this stage of it. And the sun was getting a bit lower in the west, though daylight saving of course wasn't so bad. But as the sun got a bit lower, that sun gets very strong, and it's very hard for the crews as they head west. Yeah, it's interesting little loco. It's an A class loco heading west.
Second person like this. Is that a second person? Someone had to yell out fire or something or other. I don't know what he would have done. What's your back grip? Yeah, what's your back grip? Just look at it,
Stop!
No, your head's facing the wrong way.
Jamie Fisher! Jamie Fisher, are you around to the orange bone with the red flag?
The freight trains is the LF2. Here's the TNT train, it's the Perth service. Runs from Melbourne across to Adelaide and through to Perth. Next train is a Adelaide service with a C, and then behind it a Suburban tramway, loco. there'd been a points failure up the track at Tottenham Yard, which is just about a kilometre west from where I am now. And there's a points failure on the standard gauge line. There were two tracks slipped just beyond that curve. You can see where the train was heading into. And this points failure was actually causing, or meant that every train had to come to a halt before it got its light and then carried on, which was going to cause a problem a little later on, because when the train sat parked for 25 minutes and there was about at least two services went the other way while it was there. A bit hard to get many shots of those, unfortunately. However, it was all very interesting. And of course, knowing how many services are on the tracks around this part of the world sometimes, it was quite interesting to watch all these trains going past, both the freight, of course you had all the diesel haul passenger trains. You may wonder, but there is actually electric trains about every 15 minutes, each in both directions. I just didn't bother for doing those. Can't get everything, you know. And now I've got a Sydney-bound train with an 81 and an NR behind it. It's the first of the Sydney trains. There's about 4 or 5 of them that come out this night. I didn't see them all, of course. As he slowly made his way up, this was the one train I think that sat for about 25 minutes. And that's all I saw of that steel train, which, too short, I think it came in from Wagga, heading down to Western Port. And not too far behind him was the train called the Bandiana, which is the steel trains on the standard gauge, and the train behind them was a broad gauge train, which, as I say, they call the Bandiana. It comes from a place called Bandiana, which is up north of Victoria, just up by the border at Wodonga, between Wodonga and Albury. And it's a daily service, comes down here with all the container loads. I'm not too sure, I think it's a Defence Department train. We did find out the source of the revenue for that particular freight on that train. Anyhow, the steel train in the Bandiana, and then I think this train finally moved out of the way, and a little while later we see the XPT heading into Melbourne. First of the push before service is on its way back into Melbourne, and as he disappears around the curve down towards Footscray, we see a broad gauge freight train with an X-class loco at the front. This particular train is coming from Sale, which is southeast of Melbourne, on the line which goes to Begginsdale, but is only now used as far as Sale. They've been at the Begginsdale for about 12 months apparently. This train has an interesting line-up of freight on it, wagons with logs, the coal, and also some crew wagons very similar to our JP type.
Come from everywhere.
And the XPT was complete with the Olympic power car on the rear. Only one's been done in that colour scheme. And this T, broad gauge T with light logo, heading back into Melbourne Port area. I've noticed too when as that X-haul the freight train was coming up the hill, Joker behind me trying to make a phone call at the same time. And of course as the noise of the engine got louder, he just spoke louder and louder. He didn't speak very quietly in the first place either, I wouldn't think. Some might say a typical Aussie.
And
as the evening wore on, there was a continued activity, electric trains coming and going. In this case, there's a couple of B-class locos like located here. And not far behind them, I can actually video the rest of these two locomotives because they just crawled up very slowly up there on reeds, waiting for their light. And another white loco came up behind these two, a Y-class loco, which is the interstate.
champion.
Give you some idea of how strong that sun is. Very strong indeed.
How's the wire still sitting up there?
These two G-class locos are hauling the Geelong cement tanks.
And these blokes will be NRC blokes. Who they based in Melbourne or Junee? They'll certainly get off at Junee anyway. If they're Junee
And
blokes,
this is another Melbourne bound, rather Sydney bound super freighter coming up with the G-class loco on the front.
Tomorrow, after they've had 10 hours off. 10 hours from Junee, that is. And all the long distance train companies are run by NRC blokes.
That was a standard class gauge G-class plus this New South Wales 81, and that's the New South Wales 80 class, which is Elco locomotive, old 80 class on the rear. Apparently a few and far between now, but pretty privileged to see them sometime.
2-wheel drive, is that?
Yeah. Good man.
And another broad gauge G-class light loco heads back into Melbourne Port area, and shortly after we see another Sydney bound freighter come out with a 81 and a 422 and behind it as it gets overtaken by a loco hauled country train heading out. And that's our final sequence for this evening of the evening train watching in Melbourne.
Fairly low, fairly dicky.
31.
31.
27. Sorry, 1931. 27 version, 1931.
On our Australian holiday in 1997, it stated 16th of March, a few days after the earlier item on the trains at Footscray. I went back again. This time I went up on the footbridge about half a kilometre west, and This is the view from the footbridge looking out toward the Westgate Bridge to the west and panning right round back up to the west again. So the right is on my, the north rather is on my right. As you can see, it's a very busy spot. There's traffic, bridge behind me, roads both left and right hand side. However, despite the noise, it was quite a good shot and a bit of elevation to get some of these various trains. And I got up there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's Middle Footscray station there in the background, and B-class loco heading west. So I started at 4 o'clock and just carried on filming for around about 7, so sit back and enjoy. And from the footbridge here too, you get more of an appreciation of the dual gauge freight lines on the left. And the frequency of trains is such that you barely have time to turn the camera off actually. It's a constant parade of sprinters. There's a couple heading out there and local haul trains in or out. And on this particular day there was a lot more freight activity too. It started a lot earlier. There was quite a few standard gauge, or broad gauge shunts I should say, plus the procession of standard gauge trains heading out, which we'll see shortly. And as an electric unit disappears in towards Footscray station, a P-class haul train heading west. And the first activity on the freight line is a broad gauge shunt with a Y at the front heading up towards Tottenham Yard. Just beyond the bridge around that curve, the broad gauge track swings to the left and heads into Tottenham Yard, and standard gauge tracks converge into a single track and bypass Tottenham Yard. Tottenham Yard is the Melbourne's broad gauge yard. The standard gauge yard is down at Dynon, down the port area, which is about halfway between where I'm filming and the buildings of downtown Melbourne you can see in the background. And you can see the shunt slightly pulling up at the pilot board in Tottenham Yard, the back of the train hanging out a wee bit there. something a bit different. This time was the N gauge and the P gauge heading in on the broad gauge train heading down to the wharf area. Most of the broad gauge trains are either G locos or if they're a shunt service, will be a Y. This may have been a service coming in from up country somewhere, of course. I don't know what these trains were or where they're from. I can guess a few of them from having been up here on the Friday night, but with all these other trains running, well, I wasn't too sure where they're from, but no one to ask either, so I just sat back and filmed it and enjoy it all. And as the next broad gauge shunt service disappears around the corner of Tottenham, not far behind it was the first of the interstate freights to appear. This train, which we'll see in very shortly, had one of the new NR class locos running a second loco. Just observe it as it goes, pulls up past the station. Driver clears the throat of the engine a wee bit. Probably did a oil burning steam loco, quite proud of this particular locomotive. push me pull you service of the evening soon arrived on the scene. Last loco was A62 in the new corporate V-line colour scheme. It's a very nice colour scheme. I think the full set of those locos and carriages and that colour scheme look quite neat. Here's one of the Silverton Tramway 442 loco heading down to Dynon. I never saw that loco come out again in the evening, unfortunately, so I don't know what train it ran, but I never saw it come out. And this is container train is called the Bandiana, comes down from Bandiana out by Wodonga on the New South Wales and Victorian border. It's a broad gauge service. You can pass by the EMU service on the adjacent passenger line, suburban line. That those electric trains are run on the running to and from a place called St Albans. And there's the, I think it's the Bandiana train there, is slowly pulling in. You'll see a CLF at the head of TNT's Perth service. Now this service at this stage certainly always has a CLF logo on it, single CLF, and it's slowly made its way up. Now shortly afterwards, this train actually comes to a halt at the Tottenham home stick just in behind me, just behind the bridge, and very shortly you'll see a steel train coming in, which is a standard gauge train, but it certainly was not very far behind those freight. And as you can see, the train is very busy, quite almost a continuous procession of trains, and there's another passenger train going past on the up passenger main. little later in the evening, as it got a bit cooler, even though the sun was still shining quite brightly, I went down the footbridge and moved and back to West Footscray stations, took a couple of scenes, and in the final couple of scenes, back at Middle Footscray, which is a station platform. That train's just going past now. Here's my old favourite, the raw gauge goods from Sale coming up towards Tottenham Yard. steel train heading into Melbourne, heading to Western Port. Not too sure where it's from. I guess it's come across from Waiala. Tilt wagons with with plate steel on them make very interesting wagons. Very good concept there. And this was the last service I filmed this particular evening. I think it was Adelaide bound freight, and it certainly turned into a very real golden evening. I was waiting for the XPT to come through, but it was obviously running very late. It should have been through about 45 minutes before this period.